morning, afternoon, evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm George Moss again here at allpointstv.com and also WFOV 92.1 on the radio dial. And we are coming together again at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Monday. And we do our program here at the studio, allpointstv.com, at 2 o'clock, from 2 o'clock to 3. And we air again on the great radio station over there on University Drive. I want to thank Mr. Paul Herring for partnering with us here. And that program airs at 12 o'clock in the afternoon on Saturday. And we're very happy to be a partner with such an outstanding studio. And Paul, you're doing an excellent job there. I listen to your programs all the time. And I was saying last week that once you start listening to programs over there, you can't turn it off. You start. I particularly like the Tom Summer show that comes on 5 days a week from 9 to 12. If you've not tuned that program in, you might want to do so, and certainly you want to do so on Wednesdays when they have a special guest, and they have the politics program from 10 to 12. Always some good topics that they share over there at that time. We're sharing some good topics here as well at allpointstv.com, and want you to tune to all the programs here at this studio. And I want to give a shout out again to all the technicians here at the studio that makes this production work. And we come before the camera taking all the credit, but believe me, behind us are some very good people who are doing outstanding things. And if they don't do their job, then we can't do our job and stand before the camera and get all of the public accolades. Without them, our program does not go on. Let me start off by saying that I hope the rumor that, John, have you heard the rumor about Rosenstein? Not that he's done it yet, but there's a rumor going around that he might be resigning.
Yeah, I heard the rumor, and I wish it would happened a long time ago. But but here's the deal. He works for he's assistant attorney general, right?
Yes, he's assistant attorney general.
That just shows,
although I think he's running the Department of Justice.
Yeah, that just shows you how deep that corruption is. And I mean, it's almost, I don't know how they can really change it other than just saying, okay, you're here, you're retiring. We're not gonna put you in front of a firing squad yet. You can retire. You got your pensions. Just stay the hell away from D.C. Move out. You got to move out of here. Get away from the swamp. Get away. Otherwise, we will prosecute, and then start over again. Because I mean that's how deep that corruption goes.
When they have, John, you're making a very important point here. When you have a new administration going in, it should be more than just the president's cabinet that is being changed. We need to change the whole bureaucracy when you change the administration. Otherwise, you're going to have what you have right now. And what we have right now are these deep state actors that are, in fact, interfering with the duly elected president because they don't have the incoming president's agenda. They have the agenda they had before he was installed in office. And that conflict between the newly installed president, particularly the one from the outside, and those deep state actors, they are going up against each other, and that friction is what you see playing out in terms of the Mueller probe and this clandestine operation going on in the background, where they're actually trying to topple this man. They're trying to throw Donald Trump out of power, and they are doing it in the same way they did it with Richard Nixon. You know, we can talk about the corruption of the Nixon administration, and I don't in any way deny that it was a corrupt administration. But that's what politics is. Politics is a corrupt, dirty, sordid business. And it's not just a single administration that's gone in there and has been corrupt. Can you name one where, in fact, Obama's trying to say that his administration, John, have you heard him say this, that his administration was in fact scandal-free?
Yeah, I remember hearing a lot of stuff.
Is he kidding me?
Yeah, I'm scratching my head over that one. It's like, are you seeing the same 8 years that I'm looking at? What it was, though, there was no outcry. But there was very little outcry. I mean, okay, everybody goes about Hillary Clinton and Benghazi and stuff, and that's like, it shouldn't be weaponized. It was a horrible thing. She didn't react the way she should have. Men died. But I just can't see where scandal-free. It wasn't that's not a scandal. That's a horrifying tragedy that could have been avoided. Benghazi, in the case of Benghazi. So
look at the scandal of the uranium deal with Russia, the collusion that went on there that they're blaming upon Trump. Look at the Iranian deal where they sold this country out. Look at what they did in North Korea. nothing but scandals. Just because you don't put it in the newspaper on the front page of the deep state papers, which is the Washington Post and the New York Times, does not mean that because it's not reported that the corruption did not go on. And so for him to make that claim is absolutely outrageous and ridiculous.
He's got an ego. I can't believe. I just cannot believe Obama's ego. I mean, I don't understand the outcry from there was no outcry from American people. He's always weighing in about President Trump. Yeah, I mean, let's face it. He's like, I never heard a past president, doing this as much to a current president. I just think, like, what makes you think we want to listen to you anyway? Well, how were you a success? Why would I want to, like Jimmy Carter? Okay, he keeps on going on railing about this and that one. You are the most pathetic administration I can recall in all the years I've been around and actually been witness to, political unfolding. You are the pathetic, weakest, mealy-mouthed person I ever. Jimmy Carter was sad. Even as a 12-year-old, 13-year-old kid, when I saw him get elected, I knew there were some serious repercussions of him being elected. I was a young kid when he got elected.
These liberals, John, don't want to leave the stage because they have an intent here. This intent is to bring about an overthrow, not just of the Trump administration at this point. They're trying to overthrow the framers. They do not believe in the vision of James Madison and Thomas Jefferson, and they want to overthrow that vision. What their vision is, if you come in from the socialist standpoint, what is the vision of the socialists? The vision of the socialists is that there's in fact carried out through the writings of Karl Marx in his Communist Manifesto, and also in his book called Das Kapital, which he wrote in 1869. The Communist Manifesto was written in 21 years earlier, in 1848, and it is that vision that you had in Saul Alinsky, and in Saul Alinsky's vision, you have that passed down to Obama, and also to the former Secretary of State Hillary Rodham Clinton, and that's not the vision that this country was founded upon, and that's where that friction is between the discourse at the beginning of this country was put in place by the framers, and what these people are doing to sabotage that vision. These people are not patriots. If they were patriots, and you have a person that is saying that he is determined to make America great again, and that is what Donald Trump is doing, I don't know why people can't see it. This country was brought back from the brink. We were going over a cliff with these socialist policies of the Obama administration. And people have not awakened yet to the sabotage of this man. This man was a fraud from the beginning to the end. And he's talking about running as a black president of the United States. If he had been a black president, he would not be eligible to run for president because his father was never an American citizen. And so this idea that he was a black president, that's ridiculous. Let me ask you a question. Naomi Osaka, have you heard of her? She has a Japanese mother and a Haitian father. You know, the one that had that problem in the U.S. Open, and she didn't have a problem. Serena Williams had a problem. What Osaka was doing, Naomi Osaka was doing, was returning those serves that nobody else was returning. And Serena had gone all the way up the food chain and got to this 21-year-old tennis player that is a star of the future, and ran into a wall and could not defeat her. That she's the one who had the problem, and that's why she pitched that fit on the court. But Osaka's mother is Japanese, and her father is Haitian. Can you tell me how it is that a white mother and a black father can produce a black child, but a Japanese mother who is darker than a white mother has a child by a black has a child by a black man, but the child comes out Japanese? How does that happen? Japanese is much closer to black than white is. So white, give me a break. Let me read something here. Let me see if I can read something right here. Page 14. Let's see, page 14 of this book. It's not on this page. It's not on this. Shoot. Give me a break. It's going to be on this page. If it's not on this page, I'm going to eat the page. Let me read something to you.
I hope I don't have to go get you a glass of water.
Oh, no, you won't have to get me a glass of water. I'll tell you that right now. Let me read something about these politicians. So you won't get confused here about what's going on, both in the past and even in the present, with this nonsense they got going on now with Kavanaugh. Let me start with the first of this paragraph. It says, despite our heritage of stubborn individualism, many Americans display a disturbing deference to government quote-unquote experts. Yuri Marsev, who is the former advisor to Mikhail Gorbachev and now a professor at Carthage College in Wisconsin, said that the thing that surprised him most when he moved to this country, when he moved from Russia to the United States, the thing that surprised him most when he moved to this country in 1989 was that so much of the American public actually believed what the government told him. You know, what he's surprised by is that they believe these politicians. You know, I thought about when I came to the studio, I said, you know, what I should do, since that one guy that wrote that thing about the one that talks about you might be a redneck. And of course, Thomas Sowell says they're black rednecks too, and I would agree with him on that in his book called Black Rednecks and White Liberals. Both of them are pariahs in society. But since this one person said has covered you might be a redneck, I was going to put 10 things together to talk about you might be politically insane. Number one would have been, if you believe anything these politicians are saying, then you might be insane. Anything on any topic, and you're seeing it right now in terms of the wishy-washiness of what they're saying about Kavanaugh. This is what they do. I don't know how people can believe anything they talk about. And Obama, I know people don't like me getting on Obama's case because he was the first quote-unquote black president, and even that's not true. You go read the book by J.A. Rogers, the pamphlet by J.A. Rogers, The Five Negro Presidents, and then go read a much larger work done by Bakufu, Dr. Bakufu, that's called The Six Black Presidents. And so they were passing, and they passed for white, the latest of whom was Eisenhower. Eisenhower's grandmother was mixed, and so that mixture was passed down to him, and so he passed just like Obama was passing. Eisenhower passed. Warren G. Harding passed. I can name the others, five of them all together, and they were passed. And what Obama did was Obama passed the other way. Now, people say, well, he's a black president. Well, how is he a black president? And his mother was the American, and his daddy was never naturalized in his country, and his daddy is Kenyan. If he's a black president, he's ineligible to run because his mother is the American citizen.
Besides, if you look at Obama's existence, life, he lived totally different than, I'd say, 85 to 90% of the blacks I personally know. You know, he didn't live in the same kind of situation, you know, physical surroundings. He was actually kind of elite. I mean, he was groomed from the beginning to do something like this, because, I mean, he went to colleges that were way out of the category of most blacks that I knew. So, I mean, I think most black, I mean, other than having a somewhat darker skin color, I don't see how he had lived anything like the black experience for the average American black. He never had any roots, basically. He flitted from one place to the other. He certainly didn't have they can't say he went to academically deprived educational institutions. He went to pretty good schools. So I don't know where he had this black experience at.
His only connection to the black community was through the Jeremiah Wright Church, the man that was talking about GD America. Obama was also, not only was Obama a fraud in terms of his racial claims, of which one of his claims was that he was tied into those people out there whose ancestors picked cotton in this country. Obama stood on the steps of the State House in Springfield, Illinois, where Abraham Lincoln had given one of the 7 debates with Stephen Douglas, and he stood on those steps on February the 10th, 2007, and declared his ambition to become president of the United States. And he did that to embed himself in the history of blacks in this country. I want to ask blacks this question, and I've asked it before, and I'm still waiting for an answer. What does that history of those blacks through whom Abraham Lincoln supposedly spoke with the Emancipation Proclamation, and even that's got to be looked at. That's another falsification of history, but let's just continue with this narrative here about Obama. What does that Emancipation Proclamation have to do with Barack Obama? I'll wait for that answer right now. Start the clock. 10, 9, 8. Doesn't have anything to do with Obama. That Obama's father is Kenyan. Can you understand that? He was not American. His mother is from Kansas, and her ancestry does not come out of those cotton fields in Alabama, South Carolina, Mississippi, Georgia. You name those 11 states. Really, there were 15 states by the time the so-called Civil War was being fought. None of those persons in those cotton fields have anything to do with Obama's heritage. And if I'm wrong in saying that, you then explain it to me. I'm waiting.
Another thing is
for the answer.
Another thing is, like, I remember him. So he gets sworn in. He used the Lincoln's one of the Bibles that connect to the Lincolns. Swearing in when he became president. He also did what you were just referred to as declaring this, in Springfield, Illinois. His intention to run. But then I remember hearing it and reading an interview they brought up about Lincoln. He goes, well, basically, he kind of was very dismissive of the legacy of Lincoln, the one that we all know has got serious flaws to it. But he denounced that. So he acknowledged it by saying that. He's acknowledging that this is kind of a deliberate move what he did with those two pronouncing that stuff on the steps of the Springfield, Illinois, and then using that Bible. He's actually admitting to him try to weave himself into the fabric of a Republican president, by the way, a Republican president, not a Democrat, which the party he belongs to.
Republican president.
Republican president. Even though we can have issues with that, keep that in mind. He was still a Republican president. So I mean, he was admitting that he's playing sides against the middle. He admitted that.
Obama will go down in history once we get away from, history has to be written from a distance. Otherwise, we're talking about current events. History is to be written from a distance because you have to get away from being too close to the events so that you can more calmly evaluate what occurred based upon looking at all the records. Because you can't see everything that's going on in the time frame in which it's taking place because you are limited in space. You're limited geographically from the event. And not all the information is known in a much more expansive way. So you have to get back from it, a lot further back from it in order to write it. And even then, it's a problem writing it objectively. But Obama will go down in history. Once we write the history of this time period, at some distant point in the future, we'll write the real history of Obama. And I'm telling you what they will write is that Obama created a fraud upon this country. This man was not, that man had no business being on the steps of the State House. What he was really doing was, in fact, taking a cloak of that history and wrapping it around his own shoulders and running it with it as if he's actually running within the purview of a black person. I'll tell you an example I just saw when I was in Africa. I saw the same thing happen over in Africa. You have to say his name. Your Excellency, Yahya Jammeh has said, because he's Jola, he was president of Gambia, he said, there will never be another Mandinka president in Gambia. Now, the Mandinka are the largest ethnic group in Gambia. The Fulani, I think, is number 2. And then the third group is Jammeh's group. So what happened there was then, since he had inflamed the Mandinka by saying there will never be another Mandinka president in Gambia, because he's speaking from behind his guns. So one of the persons from the Fulani group ran as Mandinka. Now you got the Fulani on his side, but because Jammeh inflamed the Mandinka and got them excited to get him out of there, he then runs as a Mandinka. Now he's not Mandinka. He's Fulani, but he runs as a Mandinka. All the Mandinka go to the polls. The Fulani is going to support him, and then the Jola that will sneak people across the border from Senegal to vote in the election, give them a bag of rice, get them across the border, let them stay there a couple of days and vote in the election. It didn't happen in enough numbers because they were not expecting the Fulani and the Mandinka to join forces. But he ran as Mandinka. Everybody knew that he was not Mandinka. But he ran as Mandinka and embraced the nationalism of the Mandinka. And because the Mandinka were against Jammeh, the Jola, he, in fact, lost the election. It surprised him. He didn't want to leave, but then Senegal brought the tanks in. They didn't go in shooting. They put the tanks on the main streets and blocked the arteries in Gambia. And then they brought the Liberian president over to Gambia to talk to Jammeh. And the talk was that you have to go. We don't want this fight. But you've lost the election and you have to go. And Jammeh, after a period of time, of course, he's making sure the money is packed up and his cars, flying them out of there. Then he decided to leave. I think he's in Guinea right now. But my point to you is this, is that when you embrace an identity, you are, in fact, creating an imperialist act. And because you're lifting you're creating a cultural imperialistic act by lifting the history of a group and placing it for your individual advantage to the detriment of the group, particularly if you get in and do not serve that group. And I see that going on in Gambia, and I see it going on in other parts of Africa as well. Bahari, and you look at Bahari Muhammad in Nigeria. You think look, it's not Tom Jones. It's not unusual. It's not unusual. It happens all the time. And that's what I was saying earlier. I can't believe people believe politicians anywhere. They're all the same. You cannot, anything that comes out of a politician's mouth is determined to serve the interests of the politician. I don't care where they are. They're all the same. All over the planet. The politicals all over the world, in every country of the world, they are the problem. You can say that Kim Jong-un is a problem in North Korea, but that's just because he's a much more obvious candidate for that, or Assad in Syria, or the mullahs in Iran. When we get to the United States landscape, what makes the American people believe the politicians are any better here than they are elsewhere? And take the wording of the one that wrote the book called "Free to Be." What about the fact of him stating in that book that the reason why America has created all this wealth, while we are the wealthiest country in the world, why does that exist? And he says the reason why this wealth has been accumulated is because America is a place where the politicians got involved in interfering in the economy last. If they had done the same thing at the get-go, at the beginning of this country's history, as they're doing in those other countries that are now aspiring to develop their countries, and why they're still aspiring to be a developed country, because it's interfered with by the politicians who do not want that development, Because if they have that development, they don't have dependency of the people. And you see that all over Africa. Africa is not resource poor. Africa is poor because of the criminals who are running those states. Okay, we're going to take a break. And when you come back in 4 minutes, hope you'll come back in 4 minutes, and we'll see you on the other side of the break. Meanwhile, we'll go on what we're saying here. Do not, anyone that trusts a politician on any level, anything that they say in the political arena, you might be crazy. You might be insane. And I don't know why this would be amazing. Page 14 again. I don't know why this would be amazing to read where a person that knew he could not trust the government in Russia, he was part of the government. And here's a government official, a former government official in Russia, saying that what most surprised him, the thing that surprised him most when he moved to this country in 1989 was that so much of the American public actually believe what the government told them. I had a friend. I was at a friend's house this weekend, and he was telling me that they sent a satellite to take some close-up pictures of the sun, and this module or whatever they set up there was to get within 3 million miles of the sun, because there were some photographs of it now to see how that fusion of the hydrogen and the nitrogen, that fusion is creating that heat. Now, I don't know if you had this in science class or not. The sun is 27 million degrees Fahrenheit at its core. That would be 15 million degrees Celsius. You are 93 million miles from the sun. And you go out there, and when it's 100 degrees, and you're out there sweating, and that's 93 million miles away, and they sent a module 3 million miles from the sun, you're 93 million miles from it. They went 90 million miles close to the sun, and they're up there taking some photographs of a temperature that's 27 million degrees Fahrenheit, and he believes that. I won't tell you about a lot of other stuff that they are claiming about the new frontier that Kennedy talked about in 1961, 62, and then of course he was assassinated in 63. But all that stuff they were talking about they were going to do by the end of the decade, and they had those test equipment blowing up on the earth, and then they got it all together. It was fine-tuned. They would do all these things. Maybe you believe that. Maybe you believe that they were able to go more than 1,000 miles above the earth. They couldn't do it then, and they can't do it now. And if they go through those Van Allen belts, you're gonna find out. In fact, they can't take the instruments through that radiation. They couldn't do it in '69, and they cannot do it now. And if they can do it with our eyes open now, because a lot of folks don't believe them anymore, and that's why they don't do it again, because people are watching. They don't believe this government. Okay. On that level there, let's return back to the ranch. I'm glad you came back, by the way, those of you who had WFOV. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, let's look at what they're saying to us right now. Does anybody believe that they're not pulling out all stops to circumvent, to dismiss, extinguish the Kavanaugh nomination? It's fine to get 4 people on the Supreme Court that are conservatives. It's a whole different ball game to have a 5-4 majority. You have Souter, Breyer, Kagan, and Saudi Mayor, and then you have I should have said you have, and then you have on the other side you have Roberts, you have of course you have Clarence Thomas. Don't tell me. Let me get the others there also. I shouldn't have said Souter. I should have said Souter. It's 8 altogether. Let me name them. Got to get it straight here. You got Kagan, Eleanor Kagan. You got Stephen Breyer. Oh, I know you. I know the one. I don't know how. Ruth Bader Ginsburg. How did I miss her? And I said, did I say Sonia Mayer? Sonia Mayer. Here I am stumbling here. You got Stephen Breyer. You got Eleanor Kagan. And who am I missing here? It's four liberals on the court. Then you got, it's a 4-4 tie right now. You got Roberts. You got Clarence Thomas. You got, and I don't know why I get a block here, but just take my word for it. I didn't bring those notes, but take my word for it. It's 4-4. They're fine with 4-4 tie. What they do not want, and this is why they're trying to block Kavanaugh, they do not want to have, John, can you look that up for me in terms of others? By the way, I don't want to go off the air without naming the 8 members of the court that they have right now. And I'll tell you who the liberals are on the court. Some of you get these middle blocks here. But they do not want that 5-4. And I'll tell you why they don't want that 5-4. They don't want that 5-4 verdict because the Democrats cannot win their agenda at the poll. The people do not endorse socialism in this country. And so what they are doing is that they are bringing socialism on the landscape of this country, disavowing the framers' idea, and they're bringing it on the land space of this country incrementally through the courts. And once the courts shut that down, there is no avenue through which they can put their socialist agenda in place. And I will tell you behind what's happening right now with Kavanaugh, that the people in back of it, you'd be surprised to find the same ones in back of it that are pushing socialism from behind the scene, like George Soros, for example, that's in back of this. We just had another person stand up over the weekend, and now she's claiming that Kavanaugh, right before they get to the hearing on Thursday, supposedly, I don't know if we're going to have the hearing on Thursday or not.
Oh, by the way, so I got it pulled up.
You got to pull up.
Okay.
Give me their names. One at a time. Let me tell you if they're conservatives on the court or liberals on the court.
John Roberts.
Roberts, okay, conservative, but sometimes wishy-washy along that line. But he's supposed to be a conservative.
Clarence Thomas.
Of course, Clarence Thomas, consistently a conservative.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Liberal.
Stephen Breyer.
Liberal.
Samuel Alito.
Alito is conservative.
Sonia Sotomayor.
Liberal, of course.
Elena Kagan.
Liberal.
And Neil Gorsuch. Yeah, he's the one that just
conservative.
Conservative, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a 4-4. Thank you, John, because I didn't want to go off the air stumbling over those names. And of course, Gorsuch was just appointed to the Supreme Court. They fought that a little bit, but they didn't bring up all these accusations against Gorsuch because they didn't mind it being a 4-4 as long as it was not a 5-4. They're going to fight like the Dickens to keep Kavanaugh off there because they know what direction Kavanaugh is going in. We got 300 of his writings out there that have been publicized. They know exactly this man is a staunch conservative.
You notice I never, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I remember during the Supreme Court era, hearing about it, because I wasn't alive, FDR tried to stack the court. He tried to increase the court size and stack it with more people that was along with his agenda. Mm-hmm. Democrats have always seemed to want to subvert the Constitution.
Yes,
they've always seemed to do that. I mean, it just isn't a recent development from the these people coming out from the '60s and now they're activists and now they are the political establishment they always whined about. They are the political establishment after 40 some years of being in there. Even let's face it, I mean, Clinton's, how many years have they been in? You know, the governors of Arkansas, and then now at D.C. It's like, or you add that together, it's 40 years, about 40 years now.
Yes.
Okay. So these people always wanted to destroy the Constitution and the intention of the framers, and yet anybody who thinks they're patriotic people and Democrats, I just don't see where they see the disconnect.
I don't see why they don't see the disconnect. Myself, John, the fact is that the Democratic Party is no longer the party of John F. Kennedy. He wouldn't recognize this party if he came back here. And that party doesn't exist anymore. But we've been on this road a long time. The Democratic Party, the Democratic Party has been the party that has been moving further and further away from the Constitution over time. Ever since you had, well, the Democratic Party, first of all, stands up in 1828. Their first president was Andrew Jackson, the 7th president of the United States. So if you start out, let's say that you start out there with the Democratic Party. The Progressive Party, the Democratic Party is a progressive party, starts off with the president that was elected in 1912, and that's Woodrow Wilson. Wilson would have been president from 1912, really he was elected in 1912, was president in 1913 when he took the inaugural oath, 1913. From 1913 to 1921, Woodrow Wilson was president of the United States. Of course, he was incapacitated the last part of his term. His wife was really running the country during the last year or so of his term because of the debilitating condition that he was in. But Wilson was the second progressive president this country had. We've had him on both sides. We had a progressive president with Theodore Roosevelt. Roosevelt came in 1901 and ran again. He served almost all of McKinley's term. And then having served almost 4 years, not quite 4 years, but almost 4 years of McKinley's term, he ran again in 1904 and decided to respect the two-term limit set by George Washington, and he decided that he did not want to break the precedent set by the first president of the United States. But he changed his mind in 1912 and came back to run again on the Bull Moose Party, which was a progressive party. Now, they call it Bull Moose Party, but the Bull Moose Party should be called what it was. It was a progressive party. In the Republican Party, he was running as a Republican. William Howard Taft got the nomination in the Republican Party. Here's Theodore Roosevelt running on the Bull Moose Party, the Progressive Party. He split the Republican Party, and then the Democrat, Woodrow Wilson, a progressive, became president of the United States. And then you have the progressives at that point in the Democratic Party growing their power over time and insidiously placing themselves in the power structure to the point where right now they are the resistance. Even though we have a Republican president, we have the resistance on the other side. And that's the friction that they have right now. And they're not going to take this fifth person being appointed to the court without a fight. And the Republicans, who have no spine, he's spineless. It's too bad, quite frankly, that both political parties can't lose. Because the American people don't have any representatives in Washington.
What do you? No, I never did ask you that. What do you think of third-party candidacies? Do you think it's a good thing? Or?
It hasn't. The Republican Party was a third party when it was set up in 1854. 6 years later, they have a person running for president. Of course, all of the pieces fell in place. They had a four-person running for president, and so Abraham Lincoln won the presidency with 40% of the vote. Although he had 303 electoral votes, I'm sorry. There were 303 electoral votes cast, and he had a majority. He had 189 of those electoral votes. So, because there were four candidates running, it allowed for the third party, and that's what the Republican Party was, because it split from the Democratic Party in 1824, 1825, when the party actually split. And then you had the Democratic Party, and then you had the Whig Party. But in terms of a third party coming in, you have seen it in terms of the present Republican Party. That was a third party at that point. It came out of the Whig Party. The Whig Party gave birth to the Republican Party as an independent party for the Democratic Party. So a third party has worked in this country.
Because my dad's relatives actually were Whigs who become Republicans back in the in Michigan's history. They joined. And which city was the birthplace? There's two cities complaining.
Well, they say that. See, I think Jackson, Michigan, is the place where it was birthed.
That's what I'm thinking. There's another place in Wisconsin that claims it too.
Wisconsin claims it also, but Jackson, Michigan is where the Republican Party, as we now know it, was in fact founded. We can take credit for it here in this state. Now, will a third party work now? Well, certain conditions have to prevail. The American people have got to first of all wake up to the point that they do not have any representation in Washington. The Democratic Party was passed Obamacare. Okay, no Republicans voted for it. They didn't need any Republicans voting for it. So the Democrats passed it. Now you have, if you notice it, while the Democrats were in power, the Republicans put on Obama's desk their intent, quote unquote, to take away from the takeover of the government in Obamacare. And they put that on his desk, what was it, 3 times, 4 times? Okay, when Trump became president, and who would have signed the Republican Party's bill, knowing the Democrats would not sign it, why would Obama rescind his own bill? So they put it on his desk knowing it's going to be rescinded. But did you notice when the Republicans got a majority in the House and the Senate, they stopped sending those bills up to the president's desk? Because they knew it's going to be signed. In other words, what you're seeing here is that the Democrats give cover to the Republicans, and the Republicans give cover to the Democrats, but they both are the flip side of the same, statist party. You don't have a Democratic, there's no party made up of Democrats. We got to stop talking about they are Democrats and they're Republicans. That is outrageous. What you have is, and it's outrageous also to say that you have rhinos, Republicans in name only. That's all of them. What they should say is that you have politicians who are Republican Party members in name only, such as Flake. Flake is a Republican Party member in name only. He really belongs over with the Democratic Party. There's some Democratic Party people in the Republican Party. But to say that he is a rhino, meaning a Republican in name only, that's all of them. They're not Republican. Take the Democratic Party, the same thing.
Well, look at the fact, when I was a kid, I heard about Don Riegel. He grew up in the neighborhood here, where the studio is at, and I grew up here. You probably remember Don Riegel, right?
I remember Don Riegel.
Okay, he started out as a Republican, couldn't get elected, so transferred to become a Democrat and got elected for how many terms? It just goes to show you, these people have no core to themselves. They just want to be in power. That's it. That's all there is. There is no basis on a theological or ethical or anything kind of basis. They just want to wear a suit and not have to work too hard for a living. That's what they want to do.
All politicians. What are politicians anyway? They are people who are lust after power. There can't be any virtue in that. The mere fact you run for a political office is that you're running in order to be over the sovereignty of another person. You're wielding power over other people. There's no virtue in that.
I mean, if anybody else did it in a business sense and manipulated people, they'd be considered unethical as hell. But these guys, I mean, and they shake their hands, and these people, he's in the corner for me. No, he's not. He's in the corner for himself and his party. Because let's face it, he's got to have party support because they pay for him his ad space and stuff. But let's face it, and they're hoping when he gets in power, if he gets in power, he's going to give up, or she or whatever, is going to give them a little bit more than they, a little bit back what they wanted for further their agenda. That's all it's about.
John, That is all. I mean, what's so difficult to understand about that? They've been doing this ever since they set the government up. I keep saying this about our great president, George Washington. That's it. In fact, it is really camouflaged by what's on Mount Rushmore. If I had my druthers, I would have George Washington up there on Mount Rushmore as a singular political figure that belongs on that mountain that was carved out starting in 1925 when Calvin Coolidge, the 30th President of the United States, was President of the United States. We had gone through 30 presidents. They were able to find, they put 4 up there. And 3 of them don't belong up there. The only one belong up there is George Washington. Abraham Lincoln doesn't belong up there. Abraham Lincoln, they say Abraham Lincoln saved the Union. What Union did he save? The Union that was founded by the framers was a union in which the states had volunteered some of their sovereignty to create the federal government and to create the United States of America. They voluntarily relinquished some of their sovereignty to bring that result about. When it behooved them to do otherwise, they had the right to, in fact, withdraw their approval. That's in the Declaration of Independence. That whenever government becomes detrimental to the ends for which it was in fact created, it is the right of the people. It is the duty of the people to rise above it, and that's what the South did, and that's what the Kennedy brothers, not John Kennedy and Bobby Kennedy, but Ronald and Donald Kennedy, the 2 historians in North Carolina. That's what they're writing about in the book called "The South Was Right," and they're correcting what they put forth out there. The South was right in terms of standing up against a tyranny of the federal government. You claim it's all over slavery.
I wonder what they were...
But that's not what this war is about. This war is over the tyranny of the federal government.
Well, there's a man before them that I can recall reading books about later. You know, I've heard about them, but I've read back a person who actually was saying that before they were saying it was Richard Weaver, I believe his name was. You know, about, you know, the South, I mean, basically exactly what you just said. You know, the southern states had a right to withdraw from the, you know, the Union. They had the right to do that.
They were confronted. John, they had a right to withdraw. Now, they said that Lincoln saved the Union. Look, folks, there were 33 states in the Union at the point of the Second War of Secession in this country, the first one in 1776. There were 33 states. 15 of them were slave states. 11 of the 15 slave states seceded from the Union. 4 of the slave states stayed in the Union. They were, and I will quote them without having a problem with remembering the names, they were Delaware, Maryland, Kentucky, and Missouri. And in those 4 states, they had 800,000 slaves in those 4 states. They were all Union states. Now, you can hide that fact in your history books and talk about border states. Now, you might be confused about what makes a country. You get to have borders, right? You may be confused about that. If you don't have borders, Donald Trump, you are exactly right. If you don't have borders, you don't have a country. And if you don't have borders around a state, you don't have a state. You have a territory. They had territories, and when they made them states, you got to carve out where the state is located. There are boundaries. When you cross over from Michigan into Ohio, it says right there, you cross into Ohio. And what does it say to Michigan drivers? It says, stop speeding. Because here we can do, 5 miles. If you do 5 miles an hour in Michigan, above the speed limit, they smile at you as you zoom by the police.
Michigan says start speeding because we need the revenue.
John, when you cross back over Michigan, start speeding again, right? We had boundaries. You cross in Ohio boundary, and they waiting for you down there too. I was down there I went down there to a Trump rally. So I know you're gonna be hating on me now. I went down to a Trump rally because I think Trump is doing a magnificent job as president of the United States. Do I think it's great? No, I don't think any politician is great. Every politician is great in this country. But Donald Trump stands on the outside of these criminals. That's what they are, politicians. All of them, everywhere. They're not different in this country. That's what this former advisor to Gorbachev was surprised by. That people believed these people. He knew they were lying in Russia. He was part of the government in Russia, advising the president, Gorbachev. He said when he came here, knowing his government background, he was surprised that in America, people believe these criminals. Look, everybody that is in the political class, because they are in the political class, their priority is to do that which gets them elected and then reelected. That's their goal. If you think that they're there to serve the greatest good for the greatest number, and they're going to do that which is right by the people, government, that they believe in government of the people, by the people, for the people, okay, fine. I was saying a few minutes ago that you got this party called the Democratic Party. Okay, we all agree, right? That democracy means the majority voice. Okay, the majority went to the poll November the 8th, 2016. 2 months from now, that's 2 years ago. These are Democrats, right? They haven't accepted the election yet. They're trying to throw this man out of office, and they're saying to Maxine Waters, and she's admitted this, right? And she's bragging about it. They tell her, Maxine, don't keep talking about impeachment. Yeah, we're going to impeach the guy. But don't keep talking about it, because if you talk about it, we can't be elected. And Maxine, with her crazy self, because this woman is a nut, Maxine Waters is off her rocker. And the people, and that raises a question about who are these people in that district electing this insane woman over and over again. And she doesn't have enough respect to live among them. She's over there living in a mansion, a $4 million mansion. Go look at her district in California. And then go look at where Maxine is. Maxine don't even live in that district. And they keep voting her in there because all she got to do to appeal to these nuts is holler racism. Don't have to have no program. And so she said that they say, Maxine, don't keep talking about impeachment. We can't win with that. And she says, and I say, impeachment, 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 impeachment. Now, she doesn't say what she wants to impeach him on. She wants to impeach him because she does not agree with the results that were determined by the voters at the polls November the 8th, 2016. They want this man out of there. They have said he's not going to win, and that's why they were talking so openly to each other in the DOJ's office, in the FBI, the DIA, the CIA. They were talking to each other. Look at these nuts in the FBI. Look at Page and Straub and how they were communicating with each other out and open, because they thought that Donald Trump had no shot. But when he got in there, all those communications that they were talking about, what they were doing and bragging about it, that's out and open right now. And they're still trying to undermine this man. I mean, I hope what I'm hearing is true, and that is that this psychomaniac, that's the assistant attorney general, I hope it's true that Rod Rosenstein is talking about stepping down. He should step down. He should have quit a long time ago. This man in there talking about was going to put a wire on and go in and talk to Donald Trump, and then use the conversation to show the man is unhinged. He's unhinged now because they don't agree with what he's doing. And they're going to put a wire on Rosenstein, go in and talk to the president, then take the wired conversation to the cabinet, and then show that Donald Trump is not sounding like they're sounding, therefore he must be crazy, he's unhinged, and use that in order to invoke the 25th Amendment that says that the president is incapacitated. Then they can in fact invoke articles, not articles of impeachment, they can invoke the 25th Amendment to then declare the president is unable to govern. And there's no indication of that. We see the president out there. He was out there in Nevada. We saw him in Missouri. And this president is very coherent. But they're going to try to invoke the 25th Amendment because they want them out of there. And they're trying to undo an election in this country. If they were Democrats, they would not be doing that. Because Democrats would respect the outcome of the election that occurred 2 years ago. And they're not respecting the outcome because they do not accept the fact that the American people went to the polls and voted for a candidate from the outside that neither party endorses. The Republicans don't like him either. And that's why Flake, who is, one person said yesterday on one of the networks, who is adequately named because he is a flake. That's why Flake is going to vote present. He's saying he's going to vote present Thursday because when they vote to send this out to the Senate to vote on, they should listen to. I don't think they should do it, but they're going to listen to the woman making this accusation. But after that, after they've given her a chance to be heard, they should have that vote. They should vote out of the Judiciary Committee to have the confirmation of this person recommended to the Senate. They should vote on it this week, certainly by next week, and vote it out. So when the Congress votes, we'll have the person sitting on the bench of the Supreme Court will meet October the 1st. We're going to see if these hacks will do that. We'll see what's going to happen there. But both parties are, out of their element here. And we got to rein them in or find some other way to get our business done as American people. They're not doing it. Okay, let me get out of here. Enough ranting for one hour. Want you to follow your dream, because if you don't follow your dream, you'll never know what's on the other side of the rainbow.